Welcome to the day after Saturday. I'm your host, Jackson Juzang, and this is season two. We're super excited to be here. We're in a brand new studio downtown in the Fashion District of Philadelphia. I want to say thanks to Rec for just, giving me the space and accepting my membership. This is extremely cool. This is my first time here today, and we're super excited to be here. I want to also say thanks to my season one members of the team, whether it was outreach, production, talent. We really appreciate you guys for the contributions you made last semester. We miss you guys abroad, but the season two members are filling in nicely. And I don't think I can think of a better way to kick off season two without one of the most prominent sports figures to come on Haverford's Founders Green. We really appreciate you for being here. So we have the seventh general manager all time for the Minnesota Twins and a Haverford College graduate of 2012, Mr. Jeremy Zoll. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
awesome, man. All right, well, let's get right into it, man. So, you grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey. I'm just kind of curious to start. What got you into baseball, man? What was your initial draw?
Yeah, I was born in Massachusetts, but we moved to New Jersey when I was little, so grew up there from age 4 through high school, and I was fortunate. My dad had access to a partial season ticket package to the Yankees, and those were kind of my formative years, and the Yankees really strong run in the 90s and early 2000s. So
Yeah, for
I got
sure.
to go to a lot of awesome games, some really cool playoff games, amazing memories. So between that and just starting playing at earliest age I can remember, and it was probably the sport I was best at. Kind of just all kept gravitating that way, and
Yeah.
one thing led to another from there.
Okay, so who was your favorite player on those Yankees teams growing up?
Yeah, I was I forget exactly his first year at this point off the top of my head, but Alfonso Soriano was the player
Soriano.
that I
Okay.
was drawn to the most.
Dope. Dope.
His kind of power speed combo, chasing 40-40 that one year, was
Yeah.
really memorable. I had like
Hey,
50 of his baseball cards along the way, so that was
oh, damn. Okay, big
that's always
baseball
my
collect
answer.
card collector.
Yeah,
I got you. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Well, honestly, man, I mean, for me, I used to like baseball a lot when I was a kid, and then I've been a big basketball, football fan, and then I got back into baseball because I'm from Pittsburgh. We had Paul Skenes come back, just from LSU, and we were like, damn, like this dude's nasty. So that got me back into baseball. I went to like 4 or 5 games last year, between the Phillies and between the Pirates over the summer. So that was incredible. I got to get to a Twins game now,
Yeah, we got
but.
to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely do. We definitely do. So, now, okay, going through high school, you went to Ridgewood High School and, you went to Haverford. And I'm curious, I ask a lot of the Haverford alumni, what was the draw to Haverford? I mean, it's a small liberal arts school in the middle of Northwest Philadelphia. So there's like, I mean, the location besides the nature, obviously, but you don't know that. Like, what's the draw for you? What was the draw to getting to Haverford? Were you recruited for baseball or
Yeah, yes, I was recruited for baseball. Coach Beccaria, obviously still
the
there and
man,
has done
the
a
man?
phenomenal job building the program.
Yep.
From where it was to now, a prominent contender in the conference on a regular basis. So he did recruit me. Early on in high school when I was thinking about colleges, I didn't really have a good sense if being able to play baseball at the next level was going to be a possibility or not. Thought about big schools, I thought about small schools. And
Right.
then kind of as high school went on, I realized like I wasn't ready to give it up yet and would definitely have a chance to play at Division III level. So as I was thinking about Haverford, it continues to be a small school, and I was definitely like a little hesitant at first, a little smaller than my high school. That
Yeah,
didn't like line up
exactly.
with my original vision
Yeah.
of what going to college meant. But
Yeah.
as I got to learn more and more about it, the fact that it was 2 hours, a little over 2 hours away from home was kind of the right sweet spot for me of,
Right.
easy to get back, but felt like I was, somewhere, independent. But parents could still come to, as many games as they wanted to along the way. That lined up really well. Obviously, really strong academic programs. And as I just kind of, had started doing my tours around to different programs, and different schools, that mix of the academics, the baseball, the opportunity to be able to play or compete for a
Yeah.
spot early on in my career. And what the thing honestly that really stood out the most was the way that the culture of the baseball team oriented. When I came for alumni weekend, was when I visited originally my senior
Right.
year, and the dynamics that the team had it was really clear to me that it was a really close group.
That's
Felt as
awesome.
much like a brotherhood as anywhere, and
Yeah.
stood out to me. as different and special relative to a few of the other places. So, a lot of different factors contributed to it, but felt like I was getting that really good intersection of going to be able to continue my baseball career, really strong academics and location.
Yeah, no, I know it's a common thread among a lot of Haverford students. One, obviously the academics. Two, you found like you feel like you fit in with the community well. And three, getting your parents to come to the games. I know that's a big Haverford staple. I see it all the soccer games in the fall, any baseball game too, any lacrosse game, like those spring and fall sports, they really get a lot of big parent turnouts, especially with the crowds. I mean, that's probably three-fourths of the crowds getting their parents coming. Oh, let me go drive down. Yeah, see the
No
kids.
doubt.
Like, you know what I mean? So that's awesome to hear. Man, I'm curious, what was the East Asian Studies major about? I mean, that's like a very specific major to get, and I'm really
Yeah,
curious.
totally. So I guess I'm not positive if it's still a requirement of the college. I'm gonna assume it is. There was at the time there was a 1 year language requirement,
Yeah.
foreign language requirement. I'd taken Spanish in high school, really all middle school and high school. In retrospect, knowing that I'm working in baseball, I should have just stuck with Spanish and kept grinding it out. But I got to college, I was like, man, I'd love to like try something different, explore something new. So I went really different. Took a year of Chinese. It was hard. It was really challenging. Uh,
Yeah,
but I actually grew to really enjoy it, really valued professors' um, style and approach. And in retrospect, was kind of my first exposure to like what a growth mindset meant. She was really clear with me that like she was going to grade all of us on our progress and not where we were starting. There were a number of heritage students in the classes, so I came in with no experience in Chinese, so
that's
I was
really
pretty far
respectable.
behind. And she was adamant, like I'm just going to grade you on your progress and your effort, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
And I enjoyed it after the first year, started, exploring more of the cultural classes that were offered both at Haverford and Bryn Mawr along the way. Wanted to take another year of Chinese and ended up doing a summer study abroad in Shanghai. So kind of all the
damn.
while I like had thought maybe I would just go economics route for major. And I was kind of tracking along with both of them kind of side by side. And eventually after sophomore year, kind of had to make a
Yeah,
call
that yeah,
to
that
finish
yeah,
the
that you had to
path.
make the call.
And it
Yeah,
was like a difference of a couple classes in either direction, the way it had worked out for the first 2 years. So I decided to just make that call on East Asian Studies and finish
that's
up
awesome.
in that direction and minor in econ. But it was a close call. It was really fun. I enjoyed classmates and kind of it was a really small group of people that were in the Chinese group that kept working their way through
Yeah,
the professors in all the areas and enjoyed my summer study abroad
yeah,
immensely. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that's kind of how it led to that. Has very little to do with actually working in baseball, obviously, but
No, 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 man. Yo, the major leagues I know were pulling for you when they saw the East Asian Studies minor. Trust me, I know that. Man, just talking a little bit about your time with Beccaria, like you said, in the baseball program. I always tell anybody on campus, those are my favorite group of coaches outside of the sports that I have played at Haverford basketball and track. And I'm curious. First, I'm going to ask for a Beccaria story if you have one, because I don't know him. I don't know young Beccaria. All right, I know Unk status Beckery. I don't know if you know what Unk status means, but
that's
is
not
there
in
any
my
fun?
daily vernacular, but I'll take a guess at
Okay, yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit more of veteran status, right? So, is there any funny stories you have about Beckery? I mean, for my enlightenment. I mean, I don't even know about the viewers, but I know I
Oh
want to hear a
man,
story.
yeah. I don't know how many are allowed to be broadcast on air, but yeah, it's always great, seeing all the coaches. It's special that so many of them, have been still with the program this whole time, and so many former players, go back to coach for periods of time. So twin spring training is down in Fort Myers. That's where the spring trip continues to be for the baseball team. So
Yeah,
it's always great getting to relive a lot of stories and memories along the way. Probably one that jumps out most clearly to me, when we won conference championship in my senior year, 2012, first time for the college.
dope.
To do that,
Yeah, it's pretty
there were a
special.
couple great moments that weekend. It was really special. We kind of finally took down the giant Johns Hopkins that year, and uh,
Good.
the tournament was at their facility. They decided they were upset about losing. They kind of trashed their own field to some extent for the next day when we were going to play Washington, with a
Damn.
couple special messages for us written in the dugout, which
Oh,
Coach B just got
nice.
a big kick out of, and was
Hey,
video. It took some videos of, and we could
good,
tell
good.
it's really
Hey,
meaningful to him. But after we won on Sunday, we got on the bus, and I don't know if it was a formal rule or not, but we never actually played music on the bus. And he was he said, we got the aux cable, plug it in, and blow out the speakers with a couple of the
Nice, man.
songs that were things that we rallied around along the way. So
Little
a
swag
really
surf.
cool moment, couple cool videos that exist, and you could tell how meaningful it was to him. And we're really glad to be able to bring that home.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture you doing some sort of swag surf or something. You're going. Uh, Yeah, man. Well, again, you just talked about the alumni, and that's a space where I'm now pretty familiar with. I just wrote an article for the Clerk last semester. It was like my last article of the semester on just the pipeline, the more how it's continuing, especially with you getting your role as general manager. And, obviously still at the time though, there was still a lot of prominent Haverford alumni in the MLB, with Petiti, with Byrnes, with what's his name?
Jeff
There's
Gropey, among
yeah,
others.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
there's a
So
whole host of
yeah,
there's a lot. There's
there
a lot
was
of people that have
yeah,
been doing it for a while.
yeah,
There's a
exactly,
whole new
exactly.
crop of people coming
Yeah.
in, and it's really cool to continue to see
Yeah,
that
yeah.
pipeline
So
continue.
was that something you noticed when you had gotten to Haverford already?
Yeah, that was pretty clear to me along the way, between the people you mentioned, also, Jim Thompson, Ryan Isaac,
Yeah.
Ned Levine, and
Yeah,
Eric Lee.
Levine. Thad Levine
Yeah,
is who I was
yeah,
thinking. Yeah,
Eric Lee, among others, and is something that, obviously pretty rare for such a small school to have
for
that much
sure.
representation in front offices, and kind of made me realize as I was going through college that was actually a real possibility. And Coach B was great about getting me a couple initial connections with
Yeah.
Jim and Eric and Jeff along the way, and they kind of showed me the ropes of how to work to get my foot in the door. And again, one
Hey,
thing
man.
led to another from there, but have been able to build great relationships with all the alums, at one point or another for sure.
Yeah, that's a special pipeline, man. I don't think any Division III program in any sport can really say that they've built such a professional connection to a professional sports league the way you guys have. So a lot of respect to you. A lot of respect to you now following that path and then being in the position you're in now. So that's incredible, man. And I think a big part of your start, I when I was doing research on you and seeing that you were a video intern with the Canadians, the Vancouver Canadians, and that actually made me think of Eric Spoelstra. I don't know if you know who that is on the Miami Heat. He's the Miami Heat
Hmm.
coach, and his
Yep.
start with being a video intern as well. This is a question I just kind of thought of like, is there any aspect of you being a video intern, like maybe one thing you learned, maybe it's morally, maybe it's like something literal within the job that you had that you feel like you were able to make applicable to your job now? Like, is there something that you've carried with you? It could be that work ethic, it could be,
Yeah, work
anything like
ethic
that.
piece for sure.
Yeah,
I think the coolest thing about that experience, a couple of things jump out, but one of the coolest things was just getting that experience of what life in the minor leagues looks like. Being on the buses with the players, Northwest League. A lot of cool places in the state of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and places I hadn't spent much time in, but understanding what it's like to have to, you know, play games, get on the bus, go and
yeah,
like see what the players were going through because I wasn't going to be able to get that experience. I wasn't talented enough to be able to make that happen. So that was really valuable insights for me along the way. Also was really fortunate the manager of that team, Clayton McCullough, who this offseason was hired to be the Miami Marlins major league manager. He was the minor league
nice.
manager of Vancouver at the time, and
Oh
just an
wow.
unbelievable job taking me under his wing and mentoring me, and kind of showed as a good role model for like how to take care of people, regardless of their role, and make sure you're investing in anyone and everyone along the way.
Yeah, that's incredible, man, to work your way up with, someone who you considered a peer one time and then you guys are both in now great positions. That's incredible. Incredible to
Yeah,
hear.
it was really special, really
Yeah, yeah.
special.
So, and speaking of someone again who's obviously been by your side a little bit is Josh Byrnes, and his help with obviously being the Dodgers and with it within the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. But I'm curious, when you were with Burns, was there anything that you felt like that you learned valuable specific to being a Haverford alum that you feel like you wouldn't have got along your time with another organization? When you were with the Dodgers specifically.
Yeah, Josh was awesome with me then. I usually bump into him at least once a year along the way in a
Yeah,
minor league park or something, still. And that was he was another. I've been really fortunate product of having a lot of great mentors and a lot of my stops along the way. But Josh worked really hard with me as I was working on building out our player plan processes with the Dodgers. Things were still in their earliest stages with the new front office group, and he just served as a great leader and gave me unbelievable guidance along the way. And his Rolodex of information, all the players he's seen scouting, and being in all the different roles he's been in, just gave me like an incredible perspective as we worked really hard to build out some special initiatives in player development for our catchers, for our pitchers. Just great insights at every turn, and could always count on him to hold a really high standard of work product and work ethic, and motivated me to reach that on a daily basis.
Right. Well, something you can see, man, is your experience really in player development is like one of the most profound and, I guess just lengthy resumes in terms of player development. And then that's how you kind of got to Minnesota. You started off with minor league operations there, and then you've been there ever since. So, I'm curious, whenever you got to Minnesota, what was one of the first things that stood out to you, whether it was about the fan base or the organization?
Yeah, that I was really fortunate to be able to have that opportunity. Derek and Thad taking a chance on me, given age and experience at the time. But I was really excited to get a crack at innovating within our player development space. It's the best department within baseball operations to be innovative in, and the autonomy that the leadership group instilled and trust they had in me to just take a bunch of chances, not be afraid to fail was really cool and really special, lined up with all the kind of the research I had done before taking the opportunity. And we had a real chance to invest a lot of resources and people into player development group, and really proud of what we've been able to build with a lot of great work from a lot of teammates here along the way, for sure.
That's dope. Yeah. Well, anything about the fan base that, stood out to you maybe when the first time you stepped in the ballpark, or any
Yeah,
experience you've had with them?
honestly, the clearest like fan base notes I have are when we made the playoffs in 2023, and had a really good team, felt really good about our chances to make a run. Twins were product of a team that had not won a playoff game in a long time, and to see everyone coming out even for day games and weird hours, and it was kind of cold and all that stuff, and the energy was truly
Yep.
electric, and finally breaking that streak, that losing streak, and winning a playoff series, having a competitive series against the Astros in the ALDS, was all just like pretty surreal. And
Yeah.
to see the to see Twins territory come out like that is something that we're striving to be able to repeat on as often as possible on a regular basis here.
Yeah, no, I feel like Minnesota is one of those sports cities that, obviously really come together like a Pittsburgh, like a Houston or a Dallas, like a Florida team, like the Oakland A's back in the day. Like it's one of those fan bases when you see with the Timberwolves, what you see with uh, the Vikings. When you have a team that's really good, you see all the fans like just pop out in a different way, regardless of the weather, regardless of
Totally, totally,
anything. Yes, and
totally.
whether it's the environment. I don't know if you guys travel well, Minnesota fans. I don't. I've never seen that. I know Pittsburgh does. I say a lot about Pittsburgh because I'm from there, but I always see Steelers terrible towels in any stadium in the country. I don't know about Twins, but we'll have to see. I'm excited to see that.
For sure.
Hey man, well, again, part of my ball knowledge with baseball is, I actually like Brad Pitt as an actor. I thought he did a pretty good job with Moneyball. And I'm curious nowadays, man, you're in player development specifically, and I'm sure you see the difference between analytics and the eye test and shit like that. And I know Billy Bean is 25 years removed, or that movie at least, whenever that was based in. But I'm curious, like, what's the balance now, like in 2025? What's the balance between looking at analytics when recruiting, or bringing people up from the minors, or between the eye test and obviously seeing their character. You got to obviously see uh, other stuff that I probably don't know about. But yeah,
Yeah, totally. No, I think balance is the key word, and balance doesn't I think the way I think about balance, depending on the scenario we're talking about, it doesn't always need to be exactly the same. So the way I like to think about it is like in aggregate, we try to be balanced on where we're valuing more analytical information, and where we're valuing scouts view or subjective opinions along the way, and also we're trying to figure out where are the gaps in analytical information that we can layer on subjective information. So sometimes it might be more one than the other. We're evaluating a high school player as an amateur. That's going to be a lot more subjective. If we're evaluating a AAA player and who should be called up, there's a lot more robust data sets that we can lean a lot more on analytical information and layer on the subjective piece. So try to lean heavily on that idea of balance and just constantly trying to find the opportunities to keep optimizing our models and our analytical approaches, but not ever losing sight of the value that a subjective opinion can have among other things.
Got you, man. You sound really media trained. Like you sound really good. You sound like you've been doing this for a long time. I respect that though. You sound good. Pause. But
I've been asked that question a few times, so I was
how media trained are you? Why aren't you answering our questions better? Um, hey, that's awesome, man. Well, another question that I was, kind of curious about was, I talk a lot to Pittsburgh people, and I know Pittsburgh fans are always upset about the idea that baseball is almost honestly like, market-based value, and you only get so much money depending on the value of your market, whether if you're in Minnesota or if you're in New York, if you're in LA, and there's differences there. In other sports you have, settings where there's, hand like hard caps and salary caps and all that type of stuff. But obviously, baseball is something it's not a construct in that way. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Obviously, I know yourself as a general manager, you're also saying to yourself, I got to deal with it. Like that's just the way it is. But like, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, whenever you were getting into baseball in the front offices and all that stuff, like maybe an initial reaction.
Yeah, I think the point you're making there is well said. Like my stance on this is kind of just like whatever the rules are, we got to do our best
Yeah.
within the rules.
Okay.
And like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
there's a union, there's owners, there's a commissioner, league office, all these things that'll sort out the CBA any given year.
Yeah.
A
We'll
lot
figure it
obviously
out.
being made about the Dodgers spending as much money as they are, so it's kind of a hot topic these days. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we got to work within those rules, and it's our job to just be as innovative as possible. So recognizing that we're unlikely to ever be running a true top payroll that leads to us wanting to take chances and try to capture variance and positive upside, but also we need to be really good at the blocking and tackling of scouting and player development and have a really rich infrastructure within the organization to give ourselves the best chance to compete with the big market teams. And that remains our mission as we navigate those waters.
Yeah, no, great answer. I have a couple media people with me, and they said you answered it perfectly. Um, that's great. Well, honestly, man, again, I've been truthful about my experience with baseball. I used to love doing baseball related things. If I were to pitch to someone and I struck them out, I'd have the same feeling as scoring a bucket in basketball. But man, I feel like this was the first year in a long time where like mainstream media really came back and the mainstream audience came back to baseball, obviously with the World Series being the two biggest markets possible with the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that when the World Series was. Like that was a interesting World Series to say the least. I'm sure a lot of people thought it was going to be a lot more competitive, but it ended up being a 5 game series. So what were your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think, in a perfect world, you're always hoping for like it comes down to game 7 and it's,
I
some
mean, I
crazy game that
guess
goes to the eighth or ninth inning.
I was cheering for LA, so I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't like too
Well,
set
well,
on
there
seeing the
you go. If
Yankees.
you were cheering for
That was
LA,
a that
it
was an
sounds
incredible
good.
game one though. I
Yeah,
mean, game
I was
one
gonna say
was
game 1 go. All early in the series, it's like if a certain thing goes a different way, we really
yeah.
could have been talking about a 6 or 7 game series. But to have a game in a World Series end on a walk-off grand slam like that, that's pretty special and memorable. And when you
Yeah,
have
for sure.
two of the big market giants going at it like that, and it comes down to that moment,
Yeah,
uh,
Joe Davis had
that's
his
kind of
final
hard. That's
moment.
kind of hard to beat, unless that happened literally in game 7. So I thought there were a lot of really cool moments, and to see so many of the stars of the game getting to compete against each other was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, man, and I'm curious, what was the chance of that game 5 fiasco in the fifth inning happening? Like, what are the analytical chances of that happening? Like, what is your mind as a GM looking like at that moment? You're like, oh my God, like this is
Yeah, I
crazy.
don't have a specific percentage number for you there, but obviously,
Pretty darn
that was
low,
a really
right?
tough inning, and you know, for
Who's
all the innings of baseball that were
yeah,
played over the course of the season, that's not a common
who's
occurrence. Never mind, Garrett Cole on the mound and the
yeah.
Yankees, on the field. So.
Who's responsible for that first out, that first base out right there that Cole was like pointing at Volpe to not Volpe.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think a perfect world the pitcher's getting over there to
yeah.
to be able to cover,
I
and
was like confused. I was
it's
like,
something
who's
we,
is that?
are practicing day one of spring training every year. And a lot of times you're like, man, why are we doing this
Yeah, I
again?
know.
It
Yeah,
feels like
that's
the
why,
most
right?
fundamental of fundamentals, and I'm confident
Yeah,
it will be talked about a lot across every camp and spring training of why these things matter and why all the little things, you can't forget them because in the biggest moments you got to be able to execute the little things.
yeah, man. Well, when the Dodgers won that, I was like, I was drafting that article. I was like, that son of a bitch Burns, man. It's just God doing it every year. Basically, he's getting to the NLCS, or he's getting to the NLDS with a bye at the least. So,
No,
hey,
really,
man.
really happy for the Dodgers crew. Still have a lot of
Yeah, that's
close friends
dope.
there between Josh and Brandon Gomes, Andrew Friedman, and so
Pat
many others. But
O'Shea,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
getting on the show
yeah.
soon too. Yeah, we're
Awesome,
excited about
awesome.
that.
Yeah, a lot of great people there. Happy for their continued success.
Yeah, man. So uh now I'm gonna, just ask you a second about the Pirates and your thoughts on Skenes. Like, is there anything that stood out? Did you have any prediction to how good someone like he was gonna be, like himself was gonna be in the
Yeah,
league?
I mean, what an unbelievable draft season he had, at
Yeah,
LSU. It's like one of the top amateur pitching seasons like ever. And, in our draft model, seemingly in nearly every draft model, it had him, through the roof and, projected for about as good as you can project in something that
yeah,
is really hard to project, for amateur players and draft success. So, he's probably somehow even been a little bit better in the earliest of goings than you'd possibly expect, just given how hard it is for guys to rifle through the minor leagues like that and take that
yeah.
leap. But unbelievable stuff on all of his pitches. Just keeps getting better. Added a new pitch in the minor league, so he's a special talent, and
You said he added a new
lucky to have.
pitch?
Yeah, that kind of like split change splinker thing that he added
Oh
in
yeah.
there, that in that 93, 94-ish
Well,
range.
s-
That was
yeah.
just like, because as if he didn't have enough good pitches already, he
Yeah.
decided to add in another. So
Something
he's
something
a
he can
tough
go
at that.
to, something y'all can talk about in spring
Yeah,
training too. Yeah, that's nice.
for sure, for
Well,
sure.
again, we'll get to you guys to kind of wrap this thing up. And the first thing I noticed, I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't paid the most attention to Minnesota because I've been stuck on Pittsburgh, but I do like Minnesota. And I've always liked your franchise and all your franchises among all sports. But I'm curious, man, like, what's the best way to avoid last season's late collapse? I did see you guys had a 95% chance to get into the playoffs like in early September last year, and then things kind of fell apart. I don't know why. I'm curious what you think the reasons are
Yeah,
to
no
why
doubt,
that
no
collapse happened.
doubt.
But what's a way to avoid it for 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. We have spent a lot of time, processing it in real time, and this offseason to be able to reflect on it. It's a combination of, a lot of things. So one, we were battling a bunch of injuries that,
Yeah,
came at unfortunate times. So, you know, one, offseason's been really productive in terms of guys having positive health updates, and everyone's entering camp in a good spot, but also
good,
making sure our
good.
performance team has all their programs dialed in. We're trying to catch as much value on the margins as possible to keep guys on the field to the best of our abilities. And that's the biggest lever in terms of correlation to your projection and actually achieving success is how many healthy days do you get out of
Yeah,
your
right,
core players. So that's certainly on our mind. And then it's kind of just the group, the group that we had still on the field unfortunately went through some bumps there. And sometimes the way things go is some guys are struggling and other guys are doing well, and it can
right,
ebb and
right.
flow. Sometimes everyone's hot together, or sometimes everyone's cold
Yeah,
together. And unfortunately, we just got in a brutal rut of everyone being cold together, or almost everyone being cold together. But we have a really talented group, a lot of players who are still early on, young players early in their careers that we think are prime for a lot of development. And I think growth comes from both the successes you have and also the trials and tribulations. So I know that many, if not all of our players are viewing that as, hey, this is now an opportunity to challenge myself, to use the offseason to come in better than ever before, and make
yep.
sure that doesn't happen again. So, we're optimistic given the core of our group, and that we're, gonna be able to learn from that and take another step forward this year.
Yeah, well, I'll ask about, one of your first round picks, your most previous first round pick, Cole Pepper in a minute. But, I'm curious, what your priorities have been maybe in the front office scheme of things. You've talked a lot about these, the on-field priorities you guys have, and obviously you've been completely, you know, absorbed by that aspect of everything. But now obviously you're in the biggest position other than being essentially the owner. You're overseeing everything at this point. So, obviously now being in a new position on the front office side and the executive side, what have been some of the top priorities and goals for you to start your
Yeah, I
first
think
year?
biggest thing is, working through, not only, my promotion happened and then we had a number of other, internal promotions and hires that we worked through, some different restructurings within the front office. So there's a kind of a cultural element of making sure everyone feels good about their direction, their roles and responsibilities, creating as much clarity as possible, and then finding opportunities where can we refine our processes in any area. I've spent most of my time in player development and performance teams, but also looking across our other areas that I've been able to partner with along the way, but really digging in with those leaders across our other areas, scouting, R&D, et cetera, to make sure we're finding every opportunity, every rock to turn over to push things forward. But off season is a lot of roster planning. It's a lot of time spending negotiating with minor league free agents, major league free agents, trade conversations, and a lot of work happens behind the scenes that often doesn't even lead to actual trades happening, but it's a
Yeah.
great opportunity for the group to come together. And we're heading down to Florida next week for spring training, and there's all these different kind of portions of the season that happen where your role shifts. And excited for this next part of it, to this next chapter to start and get rolling with our whole group, because spring training is the only time we have all of our coaches, all of our players, and a large contingent of our front office together for 6 weeks. So just really valuable time to all be together as we gear up for the next season.
Hey, man. Well, again, I'm excited for that. I know one other thing I'm curious about, again, I know I'm common folk and I'm slumming it compared to you in terms of baseball knowledge, but I am curious, man. Like, there has been, at least through my research, like a lack of offseason moves from you guys, and only being able to, I think, make one trade, or one free agent signing, one of the two in this offseason. And I'm curious, man, like from this, you're giving me a behind the scenes perspective here. So I'm curious, is there any is there any is there any strategy to that? Like, is there any strategy to just kind of having a calmer offseason and focusing more on the development of the players that you guys already have or who are bringing back? I know
Mhm.
you guys lost Santana, and that's a big one after a Gold Glove year. But
Yeah,
just
we've had a couple smaller trades in the DFA process,
yeah.
and working on finalizing two different free agent signings here, hopefully this week as we continue to
Oh, that's
work
what's
through
up.
everything.
Good stuff.
But ultimately, there was not a ton of actual action that happened for a large chunk of the offseason. Some of that's the way things ebb and flow throughout the offseason. You're trying to find different overlaps for trades and conversations. Some of it's because we didn't feel like we entered the offseason with a ton of holes and felt like we had guys that would be able to take a step forward or fill different gaps with different departures that were happening. And we have a lot of players who are really versatile and can tackle a lot of different spots. So we were trying to be much more opportunistic as opposed to feeling like we needed to fill 6 or 7 spots, around the field. But we feel like
Right.
we're entering this year with, a top rotation, one of the top rotations in the game, a really strong bullpen, and a position player group that
Bullpen.
has a number of
Yeah.
superstars in it that, and a lot of really, promising younger players that are going to take big steps forward this year.
And if there's anybody who should trust you with player development, it should be anybody. Anybody who's willing to know anything about baseball, they should listen to you about player development. So I get you there, man. Well, is there anybody in particular that you're excited to kind of see develop within the organization? I know you just that's where I was going to mention Culpepper and you guys just drafting him last year. So
Yeah, so I mean, I could touch on a bunch of guys. Kalen Culpepper, who you're talking about here, we really excited about his future. We weren't positive he was going to fall to us in the draft where he did, and once we had
nice.
that opportunity to select him, felt really good about that. Had him higher on the board than than where our pick was. So that always feels good, and just a really strong all around player with a bright future ahead of him. I could touch on a ton of guys, but like David Fessa, Zebby Matthews had really strong years last year, both getting to spend a little bit of time in the big leagues, and get their feet wet in that regard. I think both are prime for another big step forward this year to fortify, the core of our rotation with Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober. So, I could go on and on, but
Yeah,
really
yeah, I
excited
get the
about that
yeah.
group, and really we have a number of strong players in our farm system that have a real chance to impact us in 2025 here.
Awesome, man. All right, well, last question. I'm curious. I know you saw the Luca trade. Everybody in the world saw that trade. And I'm curious, this is a question from my co-host who's abroad. Shout out Krish. What was a bigger offseason or offseason or just big trade in general? Was Soto going to the Mets bigger than Luca going to the Lakers or what? I'm curious what the comparison
That's a
is,
good
if there's
question.
any
I think,
comparison.
obviously the deal Juan Soto signed with the Mets was,
It's
record
pretty
breaking and
crazy. I mean, the
and
guy just
and
went across the bridge. Like,
yeah, a lot of money, big deal
yeah.
leaving from the Yankees to the Mets. But
And like a
I
$5
think I
million
think
dollar
like
difference too.
as you process it from our side, like the idea that he ended up in a really big market and the Mets were one of the teams willing to bid as much as they did, like wasn't, totally shocking, I guess. But
Right, right,
I
right.
think the idea of, a superstar being traded, and kind of unexpectedly, no real rumors leading into it. Obviously, the
Yeah, no, they
trade
kept that
deadline was
shit
coming,
hidden.
but
Kept
there
that shit
wasn't a lot
hidden.
of buzz about
Yeah,
that. In other scenarios where stars are traded, there's usually a good amount of buzz leading into it. So I think
yeah.
the Luka trade has definitely made waves across all sports in a different way. So that's been interesting to have those discussions along the way.
Definitely, yeah. I was just asking, man. It's just some villain shit on Soto's part, just to go across the bridge into another to another league. That's pretty crazy, and I'm really curious how the Mets are going to do this year with Lindor, with Alonso just re-signing, which
Yeah,
I'm
they have a
shocked he
really
did
really
too.
strong group, and it's
Yeah,
going to be a
we'll see.
competitive NL East. It's going to be a really competitive NL West. So
We'll
it's
see, man.
we're excited to
Hey,
get everything rolling.
all right. Well, Mr. Zoll, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming on the show. You're the first episode of season two. Like, to me, that's important. I'm really happy it was a Haverford alum, specifically someone who is just now, getting into a new role. I'm getting into a new role in this new studio, so maybe we're in the little bit of a same boat. But man, congratulations to you on you becoming the general manager. Only the seventh in history. That's something to really be proud of. So, props to you, man. Props to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on,
Hey, I'm
Jackson.
gonna.
Congrats on your success, and I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Last thing I'm gonna say is I think we got to figure out some way where I can, pop out to a Minnesota game. Whether you guys come to Philly this year?
At the very end of the season, so
Oh,
it's like
well, that'll
September,
be in the fall. I mean, that'll be
yeah,
in the fall. And you guys
September
will.
27th or something like
What about Pittsburgh?
that. Good question. I don't know. I think they're
We
coming
got
to
to
us
figure
this
something
year.
out.
I think
We
they're
got to.
coming to us this year, so I don't know,
Okay,
but
all right. Well, we got to
make it
figure
work.
something
Yeah.
out. I'd like to inquire you about some either media passes or just hang out. One of the
Yeah, you
two.
let me know if you're coming to Minnesota. We'll make it happen.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for more coverage. Peace.